Clemson plays Texas tomorrow in Austin. Winner plays ASU in the Peach Bowl. I don't care who it is. Give me Texas.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of a game day edition of Locked On Sun Devils. It's going to be a little different. I want you to treat it the same way that we do a game day preview. We're going to start the show taking a look at Texas and Clemson. Just a nice overall preview. I'm going to tease who I like, although I kind of gave that away at the start of the show. Then I'm going to introduce you to these teams, what you need to know about the Texas Longhorns and the Clemson Tigers. Rounding out the show, this is where we're kind of like our game day preview. I got a final score, I got a handful of bold predictions, and we round it out with what ASU should do with that team. But let's get to know this game. First of all, this is the inaugural season of the 12-team college football playoff format. ASU was able to receive a first-round bye as the champions of the Big 12 Conference. Texas was the runner-up in the SEC. They were granted the 5 seed. Clemson was the winner of the ACC, but unfortunately for them, they were the 5th highest-ranked conference champion team. Now, if you did not know, the 5 highest-ranked conference champions, so that can be Power 4, and a G5, that can be 3 G5 and 1 Power 4, any combination. The highest ranked of those the conference champions, 5 of them will get an automatic bid into the playoff. Only 4 of them, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 5 will receive a bye week. The 5th team is going to the playoff no matter what, but they're not guaranteed a home game. That was the short straw that Clemson drew when they won the ACC. They became the 12 seed, and they will visit Texas. Think of that whatever you will. I've got my opinions. I'm not afraid to share them. This just isn't the time to share them. We've got more to talk about than my opinion on the way the playoff is set up. The fact of the matter is Clemson, number 12, is visiting Texas, number 5, tomorrow. This game is in ASU's bracket. So the winner plays ASU in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia on New Year's Day. By the way, your homeboy is going to be there. Give me a shout out if you're going to be there, and let's link up. Have a good time and root on our Sun Devils before the game. This is a pretty similar matchup, I would tell you. Here's what I'll say about Texas. I am a diehard Texas hater. I will never get into those details. That's totally personal, but horns down, for sure. They, top to bottom, could be the best team in college football. I'd say the only team that rivals them from top to bottom is Ohio State. And funny enough, neither of them won their conferences. But both are in the playoff. Both are dangerous. Both are deep. Texas, they got 2 NFL quarterbacks. You got Quinn Ewers, who I still really like Ewers. Everybody knows that the guy behind him is better. The guy behind him is Arch Manning. Yes, if you are sleeping under a rock, that is the same Manning of the Peyton Manning family, of the Eli Manning family, and the Archie Manning family. This kid's legit, former number 1 overall recruit. He has been waiting in the wings to take over for Ewers. When Ewers missed time this year due to injury, Arch came out, and Arch was very, very good. This is a good team. They got a great defense as well. Let's flip the script. We look at Clemson. Clemson, really funny, did not add any transfers last offseason. This roster is basically home built, and they built a pretty good team. Cade Klubnik, who has taken a long time to develop, has finally blossomed into a pretty darn good quarterback. He should be back next year for his senior year. If and when he returns, Clemson is once again going to be one of the favorites to make the college football playoff and win the ACC outright the way they did this year. But they're not going to have to scratch and claw their way to it. If Klubnik builds on what he just did, he will be a Heisman finalist, and Clemson is just going to be in the thick of the national title race, not just the ACC. They're interesting teams. Clemson also has a dynamic defense. They've got a unit that's just difficult to move the ball on. After getting crushed in the week 1 game against Georgia, funny enough, in Atlanta, neutral site, whatever they want to tell you, they lost 34-3 the remainder of the year. They really just kicked the you-know-what out of any other offense they faced. Few exceptions. They weren't perfect. Pretty darn good defense. On paper, these two teams match up very well with each other. With good quarterbacks, Texas should have the better quarterback, but he's a backup right now. Until they move on from Quinn Ewers, who, again, is a very good quarterback. He's a next-level quarterback. I think he is a starter in the NFL. He is simply not as good as Arch Manning is, but Texas is married to him for the moment. That could change in this game. Ewers struggles for 2 or 3 drives. Arch can come in. Arch can come in at any point, and that's something that every team, not just Clemson this week, but moving forward, every team has to be aware of this. We'll talk about why ASU needs to prepare for that situation towards the end of the show. I have 2 questions, one for each team. And this is these 2 questions basically will decide the winner for me. My question for Texas. There we go. Sound it out, Richie. When are the Longhorns going to play up to their level of talent? They should be able to run the table with any team they face any given week, whether it's in Austin, Texas, or somewhere else on the world. Neutral site, true away environment, whatever. Texas should be able to match up with anybody from top to bottom of that roster. There are not many holes, if any holes, on that roster. There are several first-round picks for this year, next year, and the year after. They're loaded. And yet, they just don't beat teams the way that you would like to see them beat teams. They only have 2 losses this year. Both of them came to Georgia. One of them in the SEC Conference Championship game. And it just did not make sense for them to lose that game. Now, they had a handful of ranked wins throughout the year. They beat Michigan, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt, right? 4 ranked wins. Well, depending on how you want to count it, they have 0 ranked wins. That happened to ASU too. They had 4 ranked wins. Turns out they only had 2 because of the end of the year. So, depending on how you want to look at it, they could have 4 ranked wins or they could have 0. That's a huge discrepancy for this team. And they didn't smoke the teams that you would expect them to just take behind the woodshed and slaughter them. They did to really bad football teams, but against good to quality football teams like Georgia, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Georgia twice, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. If Texas wants to be the best team in college football, there's nothing stopping them except themselves. Maybe the playoff is what gets them to finally realize that potential. We'll wait and see. My question for Clemson: can you recapture the magic that you previously had with Dabo Swinney? Swinney is a future Hall of Fame coach in college football. He's one of the greatest of the last 20 years. Multiple championships. He has done it with different quarterbacks, with different offenses, with good defenses, with bad defenses. It's been terrific. He has taken Clemson and reestablished them as a blue blood program. And sure, they haven't been as good the last couple of years. I think getting to the playoff this year is going to reawaken the monster that Clemson is. There's a reason that they were so feared for most of the 2010s. They are going to get back sooner rather than later. Now that they are learning how to use the transfer portal, they got their first transfer earlier this week. Props to them. Like That's funny for us, but like seriously for Clemson fans, I'm sure you guys are stoked about it. The NIL is there for them too. It's already a talented team. The recruiting is going to increase. The transfer portal is going to increase for them. Is this the year, though, that they kind of recapture everything that made Clemson so great during the 2010s? Because if they can, then yeah, they can beat anyone. This is a well-coached team, regardless of your feelings for Dabo Swinney. Some people love him, some people hate him. I'm lukewarm. I used to love him, and he's kind of grown sour on me. It is what it is. Like I said, I have opinions. I'll share them with you. This show is not the time. Bottom line here for Clemson, you can win this game and you can make a run. This roster is more than good enough to make a run. The question for me is more about, can Dabo bring out his previous success, or are they kind of capped? My bet, personally, I'm taking Texas. But again, Clemson has a previous history of success that's not that old. It's not that old. If Texas is going to win this game, they need to play 60 minutes. And they need to be able to close out a team that they should beat. They have beaten everybody except Georgia this year. They should have beaten everybody except Georgia this year. Hopefully, you would have split 2 games with Georgia. Didn't happen. They did look much better the second time around. We'll see. Like I said, the only thing holding Texas back from being elite is itself. Clemson's not going to move out of the way, though. Speaking of these teams, let's go ahead and get to know them a little bit. What makes Clemson good? What makes Texas good? That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Because it happened to me, and yeah, not very fun. I have a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 500 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year using the app's premium features. For me, like I said, turns out I had a lot of subscriptions I didn't even realize I had. With me switching over to a new debit card right now, because the old one expired, Rocket Money was the first thing I got for myself to make sure that I wasn't paying for more stuff going into the new year. Go ahead and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Let me also talk to you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time Picks in particular. They are here to make getting tickets for live events even easier. And Game Time is focused on togetherness for this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And, it's the perfect gift. Game Time Picks is going to filter out all the fluff. You're only going to see great deals on great seats. Their curation process makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, theater events, and more, not just sports games. Their all-in pricing feature will show the total upfront and no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. And of course, Game Time's lowest price guarantee will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you all for tuning in to make Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Time to get to know these teams a little bit better than what we do currently. All we know about them as of now is that they are going to be the foes that ASU will be taking on in the Peach Bowl. We know that Texas was the runner-up in the SEC and the number 5 seed. We know that Clemson was the conference winner of the ACC, barely got into the playoffs as the 12 seed. Beyond that, if you're an average college football fan, you know a handful of stuff about these teams. They've been ranked for most, if not the entirety of the year. I don't know if Clemson ever fell out. I know Texas was ranked pretty much in the top 10 all year. You may know some stuff about these teams. But if you don't, well, I'm here to catch you up. Like I said, they are teams that are pretty similar to each other with good quarterback play and dynamic defenses. There's more to it than just the quarterbacks. Starting with Clemson, the road team. Cade Klubnik. 2 years ago when this guy was a true freshman, oh my God, he looked abysmally bad. He comes out as a 5-star freshman. Throughout how many games he played, you kind of sat there and you were like, that's it? This is the future of the Clemson Tigers? Yeah, they're done. They're dusted. That dynasty is over. And you know what? It looked like that last year too for Klubnik's sophomore season. It looked like this kid was not going to make it with Clemson if the Tigers wanted to compete. Third year starts off pretty bad. Klubnik really struggles against Georgia. That team is basically shut out. And then the rest of the year, I mean, Klubnik just goes on an absolute tear. He ends the season top 10 in Heisman voting. 33 touchdown passes against 5 interceptions. He also tagged on 458 rushing yards and 7 more touchdowns. You could have added 128 yards to that total as well, considering the sack yardage. He is a dual threat. He's a big arm, and he's really, really turned himself into a touchdown maker. That's not what we saw from Cade Klubnik his first 2 seasons in Clemson. This is a completely different quarterback, borderline unrecognizable. I would venture to say Cade Klubnik is the reason that they are in the playoff right now. As great as that defense is, and as great of weapons as they have throughout the offense, Cade Klubnik needed to be able to step up and take his game to the next level for Clemson to go anywhere. Because there's a reason that talented teams from 2 years ago and last year for Clemson couldn't get over the hump. It's because Klubnik was just not playing good football. So you get him to play great football, not even good football, great football. And Clemson, who was 10-3 this year, was a better team than 10-3. Their loss to Georgia sucked. They had a couple of other losses that weren't very ideal. Other than that, I mean, they handled business. And they were a very good team down the stretch. It helps that they've just got a ridiculous amount of weapons at Klubnik's disposal. They have Phil Mafah. If you like power running games, you're going to love Phil Mafah. 1,106 yards this year, 8 touchdowns on the ground. He was their run game. He was the tone setter. He was expected to break out this year. I don't know if I would call that a breakout, but last I checked, 1,100 yards is pretty darn good from your starting running back. Then they have just the most ridiculous collection of receivers. Stop me if you've heard that before, because Clemson, for a little while, had a claim to be wide receiver you. You have Antonio Williams. Williams was able to tag on 838 yards this year. He scored 10 touchdowns as a leading receiver. Freshman Bryant Wesco Jr., another 5-star. He tagged on 38 catches, 678 yards, 5 touchdowns. Their other 5-star receiver, TJ Parker, someone we'll talk about later. Sorry. TJ Moore, 36 catches, 535 yards, 4 touchdowns. Plenty of other receivers were able to contribute as well, but those 3 are beasts. And they're what carries this offense. Defensively, they're still really good. They got a lot of young guys to like as well. TJ Parker, guy I just mentioned, ace edge rusher, he's a sophomore. They have Avian Terrell, brother of AJ Terrell, who's an Atlanta Falcon. He's also a corner. He's a sophomore. Ashton Hampton is a freshman corner for them. Khalil Barnes is a sophomore safety for them. It's a young, talented defense, and it's led by Barrett Carter, a middle linebacker who is going to be in the NFL next year. If I have to guess, and this will Subject to change, of course. I'd say he's probably a top 50 pick. He's at least a day 2 pick. Really, really good. Let's take a look at Texas. Quinn Ewers, starting quarterback. I already said he's an NFL player. I really like him. He's just not as high a ceiling as Arch Manning. And Arch Manning could take over at any time. I mean, it could be one bad drive. It could be opening drive of the game. Quinn Ewers throws a pick on the first play. First play from scrimmage, Ewers throws a pick. He's benched and Arch is in. That's how quickly this game could change for Clemson. They hopefully have been preparing to face both quarterbacks, because if Ewers is bad, they're going to be in for a world of hurt if they did not prepare for Arch. Good news for both teams is Ewers has been good. Just under 2,700 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, a little high on the interceptions. He also missed 3 games and was banged up throughout the season. He's still really good, and he's got weapons at his disposal. Now, unfortunately, guys, I'm so sorry, still getting over that cold. Unfortunately, Isaiah Bond, who I would consider their number 1 receiver, even though he's third on the team in yards, he is not 100% good to go for this game. I think he's dealing with a hamstring. I forgot to put it in my notes. But, oh my goodness. Should be over this tomorrow, I hope. Till then, I just sound like I'm going through puberty, I guess. He may be out, but they still have, I want to keep calling him Marcus Golden because of that receiver for the Steelers years ago, Matthew Golden. And Golden is the leading receiver, 47 catches, 738 yards, 8 touchdowns. He is potentially in for a really big playoff run, not just this game, if Texas advances, depending on what happens with Isaiah Bond. At 738, there's definitely a chance that he could end up getting 1,000 yards. I wouldn't be shocked. He's a really good football player, and being the number 1 guy, he might have to. They also have a very capable running game as well. To me, the story of this team is the defense. This defense by itself could win a national title. I wouldn't be surprised. 38 sacks, 19 interceptions, 9 fumble recoveries, and 17 forced fumbles. Their best players are, like Clemson, are young. Colin Simmons, their leading sack artist, freshman. Anthony Hill Jr., their second leading sack artist, sophomore. They have got so many guys that are just phenomenal. And then you have Jahdae Barron. Corner, safety, doesn't matter where you put him. He just won the Jim Thorpe Award as the best defensive back in the country. He's unbelievable. He is a first-round pick. He's one of my favorite players in the 2025 draft. This team is loaded. This defense, arguably the best defense in the playoff right now. If they can get good play out of Quinn Ewers, and they probably will, there's not going to be a lot that's going to stop Texas. Stopping Texas. Is that something that Clemson can do? That's coming up next on the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The college football playoff is here. It's that time of the year, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs are battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch all the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. If you need some brand new ASU merchandise, you got to go to Home Field, especially with Christmas right around the corner, trying to get your presents done at the last second, and you've got a diehard ASU fan. Go to Home Field Apparel. It's products made by the college football fan for the college football fan. That includes vintage college designs for more than 180 schools. So if you're a Texas fan, if you're a Clemson fan, ASU, whoever, pretty darn good chance that they've got all sorts of amazing stuff for you. Their football box is one of the items that are their best sellers. They have 3 never-before-seen items for your school. You can't find them anywhere else. They also have items that are fit for any occasion and weather conditions. If it's 110 outside or it's under the 30s, you will have high-quality merchandise to stay supportive of your school. Shop for your team at homefieldapparel.com using my promo code ASU24 for 15% off your purchase. The code is good store-wide and not just for Arizona State. Go to homefieldapparel.com today. Get the best licensed apparel out there and use my promo code ASU24 for 15% off your order. One more time, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in to make Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. All right, we got to wrap this bad boy up. This is a nice and long episode, as I would expect for a preview. Let that be the last time I cough, man. Holy cow. All right. We will start with the score prediction. A little different than what we normally do, I know. I'm taking Texas. I'm taking Texas to cover the spread. I don't know what it is, but I got them winning by 10. I got Texas 34-24. Now, with that in mind, I do think that this game is going to be very close through the first 3 quarters. But I think that Texas pulls away late. I wouldn't be surprised if after the first half, this is a 10-10 football game. I wouldn't be surprised if going into the fourth quarter, it was 24-24. And I wouldn't be surprised if Texas won the game 34-24. Now, on the flip side, Clemson's good, man, and they're playing hot. How many times have I said on the show, this week alone, it's not about being the best team. Sometimes it's about being the hottest team. And being the hottest team could be what wins this game. Clemson's a great football team. They're very talented. They're playing great football. They could beat Texas. In Austin, I don't know. Give me a neutral site. I may take Clemson. I don't know for sure. I may go Clemson. Texas is simply the better football team. I got 2 bold predictions for you. Number 1, Cade Klubnik will outplay Quinn Ewers. Ewers is good, not great. Klubnik has been on another level this year. Klubnik will be the reason that Clemson stays in this game. I gave him 24 points. I'll say he's responsible for all 3 of those touchdowns. Other bold prediction, this is for Texas. They're going to control the line of scrimmage. Phil Mafah is a very good running back. Clemson has a solid offensive line. They are not ready for this. They are not ready for this defensive line. They are too good. They're too talented. They're too deep. They got a guy, Trey Moore, who took all season to figure it out. He's got 3.5 sacks over the last month after having 0 the first 2 months of the year. They're figuring it out, and the depth is there, and it's insane. Texas 34-24. Now, in case you forgot, this is a Sun Devils podcast. This is Locked On Sun Devils, after all. So we got to talk about the Sun Devils. So here's your situation. I am taking Texas to win this football game, go to the Peach Bowl, and take on Arizona State. It will be number 4 ASU against number 5 Texas. How should ASU feel? I'm here to tell you, I'm not backing down. They shouldn't feel any different. Doesn't matter who they face. Doesn't matter if it's number 11 SMU, if it's number 1 Oregon, if it's number 5 Texas, or if it's number 12 Clemson. It does not matter. ASU is playing really good football from a production standpoint, but even more importantly, a confidence standpoint. They're one of the hottest teams in college football right now. They've got several NFL players. They've got almost the whole team is willing and ready to come back for next year to run it back if things don't go the way they want this year. But even this year, they can play with anyone. They've done it all year long. They have not played down to their competition one time this year. They've stepped up. 4 ranked wins this season. A Big 12 championship that they absolutely dog-walked Iowa State. Texas, yeah, they're 10 times better. Texas, yeah, their defensive line matches up even better against ASU's. We'll see what happens. Texas wide receivers, going to be a challenge for the ASU corners and the secondary. Is Quinn Ewers starting? Is Arch Manning starting? I don't know. And speaking of which, ASU, if this is the situation, You are preparing for both quarterbacks. The way that hopefully Clemson approached it, ASU has to approach it that way. Because just like Clemson, they can make that change at any time. It could be the first drive of the game. First drive of the game, something goes wrong. Arch is in the rest of the game. Things can change that quickly. So ASU can't just be prepared for one quarterback and vice versa. They can't only be prepared for Quinn Ewers for Arch Manning with the assumption that Ewers is going to be benched. They have to be ready for both of these guys. They have to understand this roster is insane. There's a lot of NFL talent over the next 3 years that they will be playing around with. That's special. So ASU's got to be prepared for this game. But at the end of the day, it's just about maintaining your confidence. We talked yesterday, or was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was the day before. It was the day before we were talking about Kenny Dillingham. No, it was yesterday. Okay. Yesterday for sure, because we were talking about the keys for a title run. If you didn't check out that episode, check it out. If you didn't check out the episode from the day before, check that one out. There you go. That's your second and third listens of the day. It's going to be about Kenny Dillingham making sure that he can keep this team motivated and ready to play for anyone. 12 seed, 1 seed, 5 seed, whatever. ASU has to be ready to go against anyone. That's going to be up to Kenny Dillingham to get these guys prepared. If you face Texas, yeah, that's the more talented of the two teams. That is a team that could easily win the national championship. So be the team that stops them. We'll have to talk about it more when we find out Saturday night. I don't know if we'll be back Sunday. There's a very good chance we're back Sunday. I will see you no later than Monday. And we're going to talk about this game. So wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. You get an update whenever we post new content. That way, you can stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day, and shout out my everydayers who are here every day. I have a question for you guys. Who do you want to see win this game? Do you have a preference? Would you rather face Clemson? Would you rather face Texas? Who's the easier team? Who's the harder team? And why do you want to play them? Let me know in the comments. I would love to have that conversation. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.